So the Age of Sigmar 3.0 core rules are now available to download on the Warhammer community site, so long as you sign up for their newsletter. It gives me an opportunity to talk about my feelings of Warhammer Age of Sigmar 3rd edition after playing only a couple of games, so obviously my opinions can and will probably evolve. But I will give you my basic rundown of how I feel of the core mechanics or the basic changes of the game, and what hasn't changed, what has changed. There are a couple of misses for me in this, but there are a couple of big wins as well. And let's just go over this core rule pamphlet. Now, one thing I want to probably talk about a bit at the end of this video. I feel like this is only half the picture, and we're missing the General's Handbook, which should a little lag there. Should fill out the rest of this. Okay, we have the player's code, generic things. Don't be that guy. Core concept rules, yeah, just basic things for people. Basic things about gaming central. Okay, so here we go. First one here is unit coherency. This was a big one. So units must be set up and finish every move in a single coherent group. A unit with 2 to 5 models is coherent if each model in the unit is within 1 inch horizontally and 6 vertically of at least one other model in the unit. A unit with 5 or more models is coherent if each model in the unit is within 1 horizontally and 6 vertically, at least 2 other models, one or more. If a friendly unit is not coherent at the end of the turn, after you set it up, it must remove models from play one at a time until it is. So this one is, whew, this is a big one. Well, we'll see how it plays moving forward. But I've always said, I don't know how often I've talked about this, but something if you're around the office where I work every day, you've heard me talk about this regularly. I've always said the most powerful stat or ability a model has not been on their core scrolls, it's always been their base. So anything with a 25 mil base has typically a bigger advantage over anything on a 28 mil base larger, because a 25 mil base is less than an inch if you only have a 1 inch reach, or is it? You get fight and basically. Now with this new coherency, I think it just exasperated that problem. Basically, if you're on a 25 mil base, so long as you're just bunched up tight, you're going to get a lot of your attacks still in. You're almost always going to be in coherency. And anything on, say, a 32 mil base that has, say, a minimum of a 10-man squad size, basically just lost half of their combat output. For example, my Namarti Reavers, 10-man minimum, 32 mil base, 1 inch reach. To stay in coherency, you're going to get like about 6 of them in close combat. My Bestigors, my Gores, things that already weren't great in close combat, things that are already heavily outpaced by things 25 mil base, it has just gotten worse. This actually goes up with bigger models. So if you have a large squad of, let's say, Liberators, that 40 mil, they're not 40s, right? Yeah, 40 mil base, you're going to just stay in coherency and get maximum attacks with a 1 reach. You're just not going to have the attacks. My Bulgors, big monsters that are on a 50 mil round base, they're bought in squads of 3. The second you reinforce them, which we get have them a squad of 6 or more, you need to basically lose 1 model to have 5 models fighting on 1 target. Obviously, to get surrounded, you get. So unit coherency. This one, when I first read it, was I was real. It didn't click. Oh, not a big deal. Not a big deal. I'm so used to playing Warhammer 40,000 where it's a 2 inch coherency and you fight within half an inch of a modeled half inch of enemy. Not this game. You have a 1 inch reach or 2 inch reach, rarely a 3 inch reach. Doesn't matter how close you are to your friendly guys. So this is gonna in play. I've already noticed this is severely hampering the amount of attacks some units can get. But there is light at the end of this tunnel for me, because playing with my Lumineth Realm Lords, I've realized that almost doesn't affect them. So all the infantry that are on a 32 mil base either are archers, you don't really care if they're in close combat, or have a 3 inch reach because they're pikemen, the Wardens, or even the Blade Lords have a 2 inch reach, so they were able to stay in coherency and fight for maximum effect. So you know what? If going forward the battle tomes keep this in mind with units, and then their point cost, it shouldn't be a problem. But it's, I think for the short term, it's gonna heavily affect the older books. Maybe we'll see massive point reductions to things that have lost half their attacks or almost half their attacks in the Journal's Handbook, or the whatever they call their. So there's that, but yeah, looks like Games Workshop has thought about it moving forward, or at least maybe it's just wishful thinking on my part. Seeing a battle tome that actually, you know what? Now I'm thinking about, because I was actually just thinking right there. Like, I think the Slanesh book, as well the Hedonites book, probably won't have a big problem with this either, because the Twin Souls, if I remember correctly, you know, I'm not. I think Twin Souls are 2-inch reach. The other guys, they're very defensive anyway. And then the new Seeker models are bought in groups of 5. You just don't reinforce them if you want combat. So I have a feeling Games Workshop is planning ahead for this. It's just going to affect other things that just like existing rules until new battle tomes start coming out. So this one here is it's kind of it's a miss right now, kind of, but I can see how it could be sorted out in the future. So it's not that big. I don't think it's that big a deal. But for the short term, that unit coherency is really affecting the armies that I personally. We got a new wave of command points, but we'll get to that when we get to the actual command. Maybe let's go with the page down button. Basic gaming things we don't have to go over. We're looking for like big changes. Abilities and effects. Simultaneous effects, clarified. I mean, we went from this game having a 4-page pamphlet when it first came out to now a 300-page rulebook. Obviously, the rulebook's not that many. There's a lot of fluff and other things. But we have a big rulebook now. The battlefield. Ooh, I guess we're going to talk about this more in section 17.0. But terrain in this one seems kind of a miss to me. We'll go over that in a bit. Deployment, typical stuff. Nothing to worry about there. Beautiful pictures as always. Here's another one. I'm a little upset that we got 2 misses off the hop, but we have another miss right here for me. We got the priority roll, so we're still rolling off for priority in between battle rounds, and the possibility for the double turn ends. Now again, we don't have to hash it out. Just me saying that, I already know there's gonna be a bunch of comments explaining why they love the double turn or why they think it's a good thing. I personally have never read a argument for the double turn that, if you took the argument from the other player's point of view, doesn't unravel. I don't like it. I prefer to be not in the game. I think after playing Age of Sigmar 3.0 a couple times, I think ultimately they have a really solid rule set, with the exception of priority roll and maybe some terrain rules could be, fleshed out a little bit. But the priority roll is a big miss for me. I just don't like it. It does affect my enjoyment of the game. Games that the double turn doesn't ever pop up, I have a blast. I have a fantastic time. The priority roll typically matters more late game. It has more of an impact late game, and for some reason, I kind of mind it less in between battle round 3 and 4 and 4 and 5. I get real basically, if it happens on battle round, in between battle round 1 and 2, and someone has a double turn and it's not you just have to wait, because the first turn of the game, you're going first, or maybe you're forced to go first. There's not a whole lot done. You're more preparing, and your opponent does a turn and prepares, and then if your opponent goes again and does more preparing or charging, it's just a really boring, long time to get into the game for me and mine. I'd rather get to the game. I want my turn. I want to do my thing. But I will admit, even though it is more impactful to the game in between the later battle rounds, I actually prefer it happening there. It bothers me less when it happens in between battle round 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, even though those are the big important ones. But when it happens on battle round 1 and 2, the game gets too slow for me if you're the one not taking a turn. But that's it. There's the thing. Like, again, if you love it, great. I'm not. Nobody. I don't want to. How do I put this? You have the right to enjoy it. I'm not saying you are wrong for enjoying it. Enjoy it if you enjoy it. Laid out turn secrets, basic stuff. We have command points and the command abilities. Are we going to start explaining them here? Oh, a big change. Your command abilities can now be used by the unit champions, the leaders of units. That one is amazing because of I mean, just like I can't tell you how many times I have planned to use a command ability on a unit in second edition where like, oh wait, I forgot, I'm not close enough to one of my heroes to do it. But that's more of like, oh, that's a bonehead move on my part. I love that command abilities can then be used on unit champions. Now you only issue one per turn per thing, and you can only be affected by one. Now there are already, in my experience, ways of mitigating that. For example, I've already had a game where my Bulgors played, and their unit champion used a command ability for like all attack to get +1 to hit, and then my Doom Bull, the leader, uses his personal command ability, so all units within all bulls within 6 or 12, I think it's 12, get +1 to wound. So they were affected by 2, but they weren't affected by 2. And immediately there's comments that you can't be affected by 2, not realizing that like 1 is issued on a character, 1 is issued on the unit, and the character opens up an aura that buffs the other unit. So there will be combos and stuff, and we already know that, right? I think the command points and the command abilities, everything about it, I think is a huge hit. I think they nailed this. When I first read this and before trying to play, I'm like, cool. I'm not really like, whatever. It's a change. After playing it, I really think they nailed it. Now you get an extra command point if you're in second in the battle round. There are other ways of generating command points. I've played games already where I've tried just to go heavy into command abilities and try to generate a bunch, and then not at all. So I've already experienced games where I was generating too many and couldn't use them fast enough. But I mean, as a Beast Chaos player, having that automatic patch battle shock command ability free use for my units when they're like ambushing the other side of the table or whatever, huge buff, huge boost. I think they nailed this. I think the command abilities in practice, very, very good, very impactful. And then also I can see what could be done with General's Handbook, and or I'm more excited to see what special things the battle tomes around. So just the command abilities out of this rule book, how they're used, they nailed it. They nailed it. Baroque actions for heroes. I mean, this stuff's been leaked, or not leaked. This stuff's been revealed on Games Workshop's community site a while ago, explaining it. I think heroic leadership is going to get used the most. Basically, you just roll a die on a 4+, gaining command point in every hero phase, yours and your opponent's. But heroic willpower, being able to dispel or unbind, is clutch when your opponent assassinates all your wizards. Their finest hour, I think you're going to use in most games, and heroic, like I think you're going to use all of these. Just that the heroic leadership is just going to get used so consistently when you don't need to dispel. You don't need to heal anybody because your heroes haven't got hit, and you're not ready to send in somebody to go fight yet. So heroic leadership, almost too used, but honestly, I like it that all 4 are going to get used. You get just heroic leadership, roll a couple dice, roll under your bravery. Better for some armies than others, obviously. The undead are just going to heal, and then the beasts, not so much. They could. But their finest hour, just getting that +1 to save and +1 to hit. Now this is once per game per character. Still, the rally one, I don't know about this yet. I haven't used it or had it used against me. But just use the command ability at the start of the hero phase. The units use the command must be more than 3 inches away from all enemy units. Roll 1 die for each slain model unit. For each 6, return 1 slain. I haven't played with it yet. My opponents haven't used it on me yet, but I can just see that one game where you just roll a handful of 6s on, say, Bulgors, for example, and a bunch of them come back. Yeah. And so far the games I've had, units have been wiped out completely before they get a chance to do this, or there's still malls within 3. But yeah, somebody's gonna take advantage of that. Movement phase is my favorite phase of any miniatures game. Not a lot of things to talk about here, other than you can no longer run and retreat, which is something, to be fair, kind of agree with and kind of expected. We get the active double command ability. We're still talking command abilities here. I think you gotta issue this ability before you roll. Yeah, so instead of running, you just make that die 6, but you don't get to roll on it. 6. You gotta issue the command first, and the character does not have to be nearby anymore. Super helpful. The redeploy one, A lot of buzz. People loving this one. A unit ends its move within 9 inches of one of your units, but more than 3 of yours, whatever, you can immediately move d6 inches. If you end up moving 1 inch, probably not that big a deal. If you get a 6 inch move, you're probably gonna keep that unit from declaring a d6. So I love it, but it's gonna be random. If you have the command abilities, the issue with go nuts do it, but if you roll that one, not like I just don't. I wish it was more reliable. Maybe make it a flat 3, but it's a really cool ability and something that could really frustrate your opponent's plan. I don't think there's anything worth talking about there. We got more coherency stuff. Terrain, flying, nothing to really talk about there. Passing across, yeah. Basic movement stuff. We all know how to do this stuff. If you played a miniature game, you can. Lookout surge is about the same, except for it does not apply if you have 10 or more wounds. And Forging on the Victory and Unleash Hell command abilities to talk about. Reroll charge roll, typical. Unleash Hell has been unfortunately real powerful with our Lumineth Realm Lords. Uses command ability after an enemy unit finishes a charge move. They must be within 9 of that enemy and more than 3 inches from other enemies. And you can immediately. But -1 to hit. It's basically Overwatch at -1 if you play with Warhammer. Okay. I had played around with having spearmen up front and archers in behind, and anybody charged those spearmen, those archers were able to Overwatch for them. But then I realized I was playing a great nation called Helon. Helon? I forget what it's called. They have an ability for enemies rather than 3 of them. They get to fire additional shots, so I want them up front. I think Unleash Hell is going to be a commonly used command ability on my part. I love Unleash. I hope it is not frustrating or too frustrating. Fight's the same, back and forth. Ooh, Pile In is now. You pile into the closest enemy unit, not model. It's going to help you get more mauls in the fight, except for it's not because your coherency. Clarifying strike first, strike last effects. I think it's going to affect my Deepkin. We'll see how that gets sorted out. As it stands right now, I would say they all just get fight first. In Battle Round 3, they have an ability that their whole army just fights first. So why would I even question that? That's what it is. But their FAQ and second edition, if there's 2 Deepkin players, they would the player whose turn it is would fight with the entire Deepkin army. This would now make it that 2 Deepkin players are fighting. They're going to go back and forth. We'll see if any of that gets changed with the new Deepkin battle tone, which I'm seeing now would need a new battle. All this regular combat stuff. You play the game, you understand most of this stuff. And again, if this isn't a how to play, obviously just my general thoughts on the changes after playing a few games. So if you've never played a game and you're not following any of this, I apologize. All attack and all defense is still here. +1 save. Oh, +1 save. Every ones, right? And then +1 to hit. Both of them fantastic. Those are 2 command abilities that so far in every game I've played have been heavily used. I can't complain with those. Return slaying more wounds. Okay, we got wards back. Anything that ignores damage, we just call it a ward now. If you're an old school fantasy player, ward saves. I'm very happy for that terminology. Battle shock, typical stuff. Inspiring presence now can be issued by your unit leaders, the unit champions. Fantastic for my BC Chaos. I'll call that a big buff for them. And then terrain. Terrain is just not as impactful as I would like. I don't have a whole lot to say. I want to play around more with creating tables. If you are familiar, well, defensible and garrisons are a thing. Maybe we've got to use more of those. I'm going to play around with that more in the future and try to get a better handle on terrain. But the way I see terrain is, if anybody's ever played War Machine, my analogy would probably make more sense to them. War Machine was a game of you just build your list and your whole army stands in a block. And War Machine never wanted anything more than like 2-dimensional terrain. They didn't want good looking tables. The army was always supporting itself. So if you needed a character that was going to help a certain unit, it was always in range. And I find the same thing with Age of Sigmar. So it's kind of a list building game where you're going to build your list, and your basic plan isn't going to change by the terrain. And I would like to see that change a bit. So if you look at there's a game I played on Mini War Gaming where I played that Beats of Chaos versus Luca and some Soulblight, and he had two Centaur vampire guys. We were talking about terrain before that game. Maybe we probably could have talked about this a little bit in the game. But we had we played it 2 games that day. The first game, we're like, the terrain just doesn't matter. We're trying to make it matter. It just doesn't matter that much, with the exception of cover and stuff. But it's not really controlling the flow of the game or anything that much. So we had Matt try to make a super dense terrain for us, independent of us, and then we rolled off and like picked our sides and super narrow lanes, and with the lanes being so narrowed, it was almost like you couldn't play. Like too much terrain prevented actual play, unless you had fly to get where you go. But not enough terrain didn't. I don't know. Terrain is not quite getting right for me. Now I'll admit I'm not willing to put that completely on Games Workshop at this time. Maybe I gotta figure out how to make these tables. But every time, here's guys, I actually watch a lot of battle reports. Not ours because we make them. I watch other people's stuff, and I paint a lot. I like to watch. I love this hobby, and I find the same things happening across most people's tables, and nobody's really talking about or bringing it up. I think the tables are too sparse because too dense doesn't really work, but the terrain almost doesn't matter in this game of it. Terrain feels as impactful in this game as War Machine when that thing was a thing for me. But I mean, if you have any suggestions on your terrain, send me pictures or just link Battleport. If you know a channel that just nailed it, send me a link. I'll take a look. Oh, having monsters count as 5 mods for controlling objective, I think is a positive change. Those giants are still going to dominate everything, or objectives, I think. But miscasting on a double casting roll of 2, taking some mortal wounds. Love that. Arcane Bolt being held when you cast it, and you can move up and then use it. Positive. That's just cool. Not necessary, but cool. The endless spell changes was another big hit for me. I love the endless spell changes. Having one predatory bound to the wizard casting it so long as it stays within 30, having more control. You're gonna now see me use the wildfire Taurus. Except for, I'm gonna be honest with you, the games we've played so far on camera that we recorded, I think. Well, I don't want to spoil. Well, they were just regularly unbound. Like we couldn't get our spells off. Off camera, we played a bit with them, and you know what? Even with a double turn, your opponent has the ability to dispel an endless spell. Like, so if I go use a Wildfire Taurus, do a bunch of mortal wounds, win a double turn, go again, I get to move my Wildfire Taurus again, but my opponent has the opportunity to spell it. That kind of tones, like, before I realized that, I was like, ooh, endless spells are going to be really, really good. Either way, endless spells were when they were announced, huge excitement for me. In practice, a huge miss in 2nd edition. 3rd edition, nailed it. Love it. I love it. I would love to see go on the community site. You've already announced that General's Handbook and like new rules for the endless spells. I'm super excited to see how they handle that. I think endless spells so far. We're talking about endless spells here, so we're just scrolling. Priests. Okay, I haven't had a chance to play with this too much. I don't have anything intelligent to say about it. I'm excited that the Deepkin Priest, the Soul Crier or Soul Scryer, he can basically do something now because there are he can smite and chant. I think there's generic abilities for bless. Yes, so he can pray for a bless. Because he was a priest that had actually no prayers, but the rest of them, like the dwarves, the foreign guys, they've already had this kind of stuff. We have some generic things as well. 48-inch smite for 1 mortal wound on another priest. Can't complain. But yeah, I gotta play around more with priests. I'm gonna say probably positive changes for priests. I love the changes to monsters. Monsters, for a while, back in like 1st edition, just typically weren't always worthy. You're better off. Well, it doesn't matter. That's a whole separate conversation. I love this monster table. Roar is fantastic. Can issue or receive commands on a roll of 3+. Extra more wounds on a stop. Titanic dual play. Like all of these. Having a chance to use Smash the Rubble where you're destroying terrain. yet. But I'm excited for that one. I think Monster Changes was a hit for me. Kind of minor, not big changes, but I'll say overall, I like what they did with that. Nothing to complain about, and I'll love to complain. We're getting close here. Man, models, abilities, damage tables, basic functions of the game. We know all this. Scenery rules. Now, we already talked about just ignoring some of the scenery rules because of how dense we create our tables where I work at Mini Wargaming. I'm not willing to do that yet. I want to play as they intend, but it just seems that even in Warhammer 40K, they have some scenery or whatever. I've seen other Batrock channels do the same thing where they kind of ignore the rules for placing them within reason because make a good table that looks cool that people want to watch and looks visual typically does not lend well or good space for your terrain within the rules. Getting there, pitch battle profiles. This is just basic. Yeah. We know all this stuff. Points, values, battlefield, roles, all basic things. Battalions, I think, are cool. Oh, because we lost the ability to use all our regular battalions, but whatever. We can ignore this one because I think the next. Okay, here we go. So here's all the things you can choose from, and without going, oh, they're done. So I think the battle regiment right here is going to be very commonly used until we see how things are going to get played. But basically, this symbol here means everything in the battalion gets dropped all at once. Now, currently, this is the only way to drop more than one thing. Old War Scroll battalions, you could do that. Can't use this anymore in match play. And let's be honest, we're only talking match play here because people typically only play match play. Obviously, someone that's comment below that you don't play match play. Like I know some don't, but as a whole, community typically only plays match play. Either way, okay. So this one here, we have to have a leader, and you can have up to support leader. What do they call the support leaders? Subcommanders. Basically, oh, we got a bit of a lag. There we go. You have to have a leader. You have to have the dark ones, and you have to have 2 units. But you have up to 2 subcommanders and up to 3 more units and 1 dragon or 1 monster or artillery. So leader is just a leader. Sub-leaders, subcommanders are leaders with less than 10 wounds, and then units are anything that isn't a behemoth, artillery, or leader. And then the other 2 are pretty straightforward. All this regiment, it costs nothing. It's just where you fit to put your models, right? All this does is allows you to drop all of them at once. The Warlord one I think has been used a couple times by us. What does it give you? Magnificent. You get extra enhancement. We'll talk about those in a minute. I kind of like those. And it gives you something else. Ooh, strategist. One's for battle, you get an extra command point. So this one gives you an extra command. This one here basically allows one line breaker. That symbol there allows one of your units to issue the all-out attack command without spending a command point and without actually counting as using the all-out attack. So one of these monsters could use all-out attack, and then you can actually spend a command point to issue it on another unit or the other monster once per game. But battalions, not that exciting. I'm not gonna lie. Like, this kind of the idea is kind of cool, but this is not that exciting. It's not. It's neither a hit or a miss. But as I said at the beginning of this video, I feel like this is half the picture. I'm going to see if there's more in General's Handbook, but more importantly, I would expect to see a bunch of the new style of battle tome. And honestly, I'm super excited for how the battle tomes are going to get laid out and what we're going to get into forward. But either way, right now, not super exciting, but what it probably is going to be is I think it's going to be exciting. Enhancements. Okay, as we're going to talk about relics. One of the battalions gave you an extra relic. You always roll a triumph now, or pick one. So there's generic command abilities, generic artifacts, generic spells you can put in your wizards instead of choosing ones from your book if you want. Or generic prayers. This helps my Deepkin priest that doesn't have any currently. And triumphs. You always have a triumph, and then you just get to activate it if you play the game with. Wonder how the competitive or the tournament season handle. You have to put that in your. We'll see. Mysterious terrain. Here's all that stuff I just don't care about. I know, like, somebody already like, well, Steve, this might solve some of your problems. The problem with this is I've never ever seen anybody actually use these, because even if they mark them, they typically forget. And then honestly, I watch plenty of other channels do the same thing, where they try to mark all the terrain, and more often than not, they forget to use the special ability on it, because you're bringing, say, I don't know, this rocky wall that you brought in 40 bat reps. Once it's arcane, then it's inspiring, and it's done. Or even in your games at the sorry, everything for me is from a bat rep point. If you're playing in your store, like I don't see people using these that often. I think if a certain type of terrain, I think this is where kind of the miss is for me for terrain. If like a thing that looks like a wizard tower was always arcane type thing, or maybe all woods were deadly. I'm not saying all woods should be deadly, but that would, I think, help out this terrain issue I'm currently having, as I'm currently trying to sort out. But again, I'm gonna put that on me, not Games Workshop yet. But terrain, just not quite there for me. All right, rules index. So that's it. Okay, so there we go. A couple of misses in this book for me, but a couple of big hits. Terrain, figuring out coherency right now. Happened to there we go. Figuring out terrain. Still not a fan of the double turn. Real disappointed that it's still there. Coherency kind of hurts my current armies, and I think a lot of other, like Iron Jaw's gonna not have a good time. There's plenty of armies that are just not gonna have a good time with the new coherency rule. We'll see how they go in the future. Command abilities, nailed it. Predator and the spells, nailed it. Those are two big hits for me. And I'm also just super excited for, after reading this and playing around with this, there's a lot of hints as where the battle tomes. That's where, I don't know, excited for that. Comment below anything that you think you love, you missed. Have you had a chance to play with it yet? We have the rules now. I'm assuming you guys are playing right now. But yeah, get weigh in. Let me know what you think. And then when and if my opinions change, because they will, they always do, right? I'll make a follow-up video. We'll talk about this some more. Also, later today, today's Tuesday, I'll be doing a painting stream where we'll probably end up talking about this almost exclusively. And then this Saturday, I'll do another painting stream. The streams happen anywhere from late morning to early afternoon for a varied amount of time. And we'll talk a lot about Sigmar. Give me your opinions, and we'll see how you guys are doing. Play some games. Let me know. Thanks for watching, guys. Happy wargaming.